In the years following World War II, America underwent one of the most dramatic social and physical transformations in its history. That transformation was the rise of suburbia. In the 1950s, millions of Americans moved out of crowded cities and into new residential communities that promised clean streets, quiet neighborhoods, and a piece of the American dream. These suburbs didn't just change where people lived, they reshaped how Americans thought about identity. The rise of suburbia in the 1950s was more than a housing trend, it was a national movement that defined a generation. At the heart of this shift was a powerful combination of economic prosperity and government support. After the war, the United States entered a period of sustained economic growth. Millions of veterans returned home and started families. They needed housing, and they needed it fast. But urban areas were crowded, and housing shortages were common. That's where the suburbs came in. Developers began building large-scale residential neighborhoods just outside major cities. These new homes were affordable, modern, and mass-produced with assembly line efficiency. One of the most famous examples was Levittown, a suburban development created by William Levitt in New York. Levittown was a planned community made up of thousands of nearly identical homes. What made it revolutionary was its scale and speed. Levitt and his company used methods borrowed from wartime manufacturing to build houses rapidly and cheaply. For many families, Levittown represented a dream come true: home ownership in a safe, clean, and structured environment. It became a model for countless other suburbs that soon spread across the country. Government policy played a huge role in making suburbia possible. The GI Bill of 1944 provided returning veterans with low-interest home loans. This helped millions of former soldiers purchase homes in the suburbs with little or no down payment. At the same time, federal investment in highways made it easier than ever for people to commute from suburban homes to urban jobs. The Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 created a vast network of roads that connected suburban communities to the rest of the country. Cars became essential to suburban life, and the entire economy began to shift to accommodate to this new way of living. But suburbia wasn't just about housing, it was about lifestyle. Suburban life promised a vision of stability, security, and prosperity. Families moved into their own homes with private yards. Shopping centers and schools were built nearby. Community life revolved around the home, the church, and the local PTA. For many Americans, the suburbs symbolized progress and the rewards of hard work. The image of the nuclear family, father, mother, children, and a dog living in a ranch-style home became an ideal that was marketed in magazines, television shows, and advertisements. Yet, beneath the surface of this ideal, there were tensions and exclusions that shaped the reality of suburban life. One of the most controversial aspects of 1950 suburbia was its racial exclusivity. Many suburban developments, including Levittown, had policies that explicitly barred African Americans and other minorities from purchasing homes. These policies were often supported or enforced by homeowners associations, real estate agents, and even government-backed loans, which were denied to Black families under a practice known as redlining. The rise of suburbia also came with cultural consequences. Life in the suburbs was orderly and structured, but it could feel conformist. Critics argue that suburbia promoted a bland, homogenized way of living where individuality was sacrificed for social acceptance. Authors like Sloan Wilson in The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit and Betty Friedan in The Feminine Mystique explore the emotional costs of suburban life. For men, there was pressure to succeed in corporate jobs and provide for their families. For women, the emphasis on domesticity often led to feelings of isolation and unfulfillment. The very image of the suburban housewife, once idealized, became a symbol of repression for many women. Despite these criticisms, the appeal of suburbia endured. It offered space, privacy, and a sense of community that many people valued. It also marked a shift in how Americans thought about progress. The post-war suburbs were not just a response to housing demand. They were a reflection of a changing national identity. They represented a move toward consumerism, domestic comfort, and a belief in the future. By the end of the 1950s, suburbia had become the dominant form of American residential life. Millions of Americans lived in homes that looked remarkably similar, drove cars on new highways, and participated in a culture centered around family, consumption, and stability. The suburban boom had reshaped the American landscape, both physically and culturally. The rise of suburbia in the 1950s was a turning point in American history. It provided opportunity and comfort for many, while excluding others and reinforcing deep divisions. It was a product of prosperity, policy, and ambition. Today, the legacy of that era remains all around us. From the layout of our neighborhoods to the structure of our daily lives, the echoes of post-war suburbia still shape the world we live in. Like, comment, and subscribe for daily history content.